we had some boxing action over the weekend. One of the most anticipated fights, Canelo Crawford. Terence Crawford became the first male boxer to capture 3 unified division titles when he defeated Canelo Alvarez by unanimous decision on Saturday night to win the super middleweight championship. It's considered to be among one of the greatest fights in Vegas history. Chat, did you have a chance to watch? Lachelle, did you get to watch? And what were your initial thoughts as that fight wrapped up?
I enjoyed it. I mean, shout out Netflix. I'm not gonna lie. I hope that they continue to put on these boxing matches. I mean, making it accessible for everyone if you have a Netflix subscription, which most people do have, not having to pay extra to watch it. I thought the production level was really great. The fight itself was amazing. I mean, talking to a lot of people who watch boxing, they were like, it doesn't get any better than that. Like, that was 2 masterful boxers really just in flow state of boxing. And what we saw from Terence Crawford obviously being a big deal. And now these GOAT conversations are happening. It honestly, for me, it was fun to be more acclimated to that boxing world and like how they are viewing his resume, but also what this win like really meant for his career.
No, absolutely. The one qualm I have to pick with Netflix is why are you starting a fight at 1 a.m. Eastern time?
It's late.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
late. It
That
was
was supposed
late.
to start at
It was
11
late.
p.m. 11
It was
p.m.
late.
And I understand it's on Pacific time. You know, it's in Vegas. For them, it's
Mm-hmm.
only, what, 11 p.m. there. So,
Yeah.
you know, it makes a lot of sense. But I mean, dang, for the people on the
It
East
was late.
Coast,
It was they
yeah.
mistimed something. They missed time. And then also to mention, like the battle of the bands that was happening before the fight started cracked me up. I said, are we having a real concert? And we're already hanging by a thread here to stay awake. But I'm not gonna lie, them bands was getting it. I was up after that. I was like, oh, we might can make it to the end of this thing because they were going. They was hooting and hollering in a good way. I was for it.
Yeah, you were locked in after that. That's
They
so
was
fair.
flowing. They was
Hey,
getting it.
they were for sure. But yeah, the real fight was staying awake. I was in a bar trying to, I had no seat. I had heels on. I'm like, oh, I'm fighting for my own life right now, trying to watch this fight.
It was late. It was late.
It was too much, but it was worth it. It was a little
Yeah.
slow to start. I will say that I'm not a huge boxing girl. I admittedly don't follow the sport too much. Don't know the history of the boxers, you know, too well either. But I did thoroughly enjoy this fight, and from what I did learn about both Canelo and Crawford, I've really enjoyed just kind of hearing their storylines, and specifically Crawford. I want to touch on 2 stories that really resonated with me, because this ultimately made me root for him. And those 2 stories, one was in 2008. And so he was shot in the head while sitting in his car. The bullet barely missed his brain. He drove himself to the hospital for treatment. And that was the moment that ultimately made him change his life around and focus on boxing, like really focus on his boxing career and lock in. And then the other story that he's told that also I feel like speaks to his character. When he was a kid, his mom would tell him, like, you are not going to amount to anything. She put it in a very different wording, but I'm not going to say it for our PG audience. But he said that would you know, just kind of fill him with rage. She would tell the neighborhood kids that, like, hey, I'll give you $10 if you can beat my
Mm-hmm.
son. And he wouldn't lose. He wouldn't lose. And he would always look to his mother's approval. And, you know, it never happened. So it's like, you know, kind of interesting hearing those 2 stories. It's like, you know, there's a lot of qualities in an individual that, you know, ultimately form a lot of character. Um, you know, character traits that form from experiences like that made me ultimately, you know, root for him, aside from being, you know, just, you know, the American in the fight as well, you know, homegrown
Yeah.
Nebraska kid. But yeah, hearing his story was really cool, and I wanted to share it with y'all as well. But great fight at the end of the day. Great fight. On another note, I do want to touch on some comments made by Max Kellerman. One, I didn't even know Max Kellerman was in the boxing world like that. I thought that man
Oh,
was.
he's a boxing purist.
I Yeah,
Like,
that was news to me, because again, I'm not,
mm-hmm.
admittedly, I'm not too much into the boxing world. I'm not too much into the sport, but Listening to Max, I said, you a little hypocritical right now. Because he was very adamant from the jump about this like fight, and he was saying like Terence has never fought anyone elite
Mm.
going into this fight, right? And then after the fight's over, he's talking about, oh, you're the GOAT of this era. I'm like, how are you going to talk about his resume, tear it down 1 second, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to talk about him being the greatest? I'm like, are you riding the moment, or are you going to like actually stick to what you believe in? Because I'm sitting here confused. And I know a lot of people aren't fans of Kellerman in the boxing space. So I'm
Mm.
curious what their thoughts are after, some of the statements that he made. And like I said, taking that stance and then turning around and giving a completely different take. Chat, let me know if you have any thoughts. And Lachelle, same on your end. Like, what did you think about just Kellerman's comments?
I like Max in boxing because I feel like it's his element. You can tell when he's commentating how much excitement he has. Like he really loves boxing, and think even at the end of the fight, he even was like, "I hope this propels the sport. Like I
Mm-hmm.
hope that this showed everyone that this sport needs to be back on the top." I think for him, but I think he wasn't the only one in the boxing world that brought up Crawford's resume at times. I think Canelo was a favorite for a lot of boxing analysts and commentators. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he's younger, he's bigger. I mean, Crawford had to jump up 2 weight classes. I think there were a lot of questions from everyone, not just Max. I guess for Max, I can understand maybe fans and people being like, man, that's kind of hypocritical. I think for him, and probably for a lot of those boxing analysts, you could tell that there was a moment of like, whoa, like you just boxed really probably a perfect fight. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for him in that moment, it was the realization of, wait a minute, like now we have to put respect. I can't get up here and tell you how I thought your resume was, not gonna. It's like, man, you just did that. Like you just Canelo is Canelo. Like people really saw him as a favorite. There were so many question marks, but I thought for Max in that moment, he truly in a way I thought was trying to help people who were most likely getting introduced to the sport. Like when he uses the basketball analogy of like, you are him of this era, you are that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you are next to Floyd. I think he was trying to kind of make that visualization for all of us to understand where Terence is in the conversation of what this fight meant. Because I think for a lot of people, maybe they didn't understand how big it was. And then, like, when you see him, on the ground crying. And I think for Max, it's almost like any fan. Like, you have your favorite of who you think is most likely going to win. You give your reasons why you don't think the other person's going to win. And then when they do it in a fashion that maybe you didn't expect, it's like, dang, like, I can't do nothing but give you love. Like,
Yeah.
you fought perfectly, honestly. Like what complaints can we have about what you did? And I think you heard him even after, like he really had high praise. He was like, man, like he's the guy. Like I hope that this helps the sport. And I think for a lot of people understanding what this means for Terence Crawford, I mean, he even said it. I think a reporter asked him after, how do you feel like you're better than Floyd? And he was like, Floyd was the best of his generation, I'm the best of mine. Like I'm not here to compare, I'm not here to compete in that. Like you hear Canelo even say like, oh, he's better than Floyd. Like I think for even this moment, Canelo got hit in the face and he kind of looking like, wait a minute now. I think there was some utter surprise for a lot of people, including Canelo, because that video of him when he got popped and he kind of looked at him
He
like,
was, yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking
yeah,
about.
like,
Yeah.
and you see Crawford laughing and smiling in the ring, shaking his head like, nah, it ain't gonna work. I think everyone was like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, you really are it to go up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo. You're 38. Like, I think for Max, I think it was a moment of, whoo, we got this one wrong. Like
Mm.
you're him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, that's a fair stance. I respect that, and I would understand if that is the mindset that he was in, if that is, where he was coming from. Because I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you do just have to admit that you were, wrong about what you initially said,
Mm-hmm.
and like you said, other people were questioning, his resume as well. So, maybe it's not as hypocritical as it kind of looked at face value, but interesting comments nonetheless. And like I said, I know a lot of people have had their fair share of things to say about Kellerman. At the end of the day, that's not the focus. The focus is Crawford and Canelo and the fight, and Crawford winning and celebrating him and that accomplishment. Um, because yeah, he did his big one with that fight, 42-0. He even had a Rolex ready to go, engraved before the
It's
fight
a
even
it's a
started.
huge It's a huge deal. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's so many people who probably started looking up, his highlights, comparing
Mm-hmm.
it. I've seen a lot of people say like, man, this looked like it was Floyd Mayweather. Like it looks like I seen that from a lot of people in the boxing world that were like, that might have been the most perfect fight that we could have seen from a boxer because so many people have respect for Canelo. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you even see Canelo, he's like, dog, like he went out there. I mean, Crawford from the moment, it was entertaining, but it was really masterful seeing them study each other as the match went on and like just seeing more and more how Crawford just like cocky, arrogant, shaking his head when he hitting them like that ain't gonna
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
popping them like it was fun to watch. I appreciate that a lot of the analysts because it was a lot of them that did not have Crawford winning, and I respected at the end they all were like, yeah, like he's the GOAT. Like, I think I can respect that about boxing. They're not like a basketball and a football where like their pride will make them stay with the decision. A lot of them just were like, I mean, what more can we, all the things that we said as to why he wouldn't win, it didn't matter. Like, it
Yeah.
didn't matter.
Yeah. Hey, that's fair. That's fair. I respect that. Like I said, shout out Crawford for that win last night. Great fight. Would be interested to see what is next for him, what is next for Canelo as well.